A member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and the Senate Armed Services Committee, South Dakota Republican Senator Mike Round. Senator, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to visit.
So, Senator, you, along with the rest of us, have seen those horrific images of the Children's Hospital being bombed in Ukraine. Russia appears to be, at this point, just indiscriminately bombing civilian areas. The U.S. ambassador to the UN today said Russia is committing war crimes. Would you agree? Have they?
It most certainly appears that way to us. I think the White House, when they say that you have to have it adjudicated, may be taking the long look. Most of us are recognizing that what they're doing is they're killing civilians. They're killing innocent people. They're not out chasing down armies or individuals that are armed. They're simply doing indiscriminate killing right now in Ukraine. And the reason why they're doing it is because they're trying through attrition to convince Ukraine to surrender. They haven't been able to defeat their militias. They haven't been able to defeat their army or the armed forces of Ukraine. Their president has stood strong, and when their original plans of going in quickly in a blitzkrieg type approach failed and failed miserably, when their intel was wrong, when their army did not perform according to what they expected, they fell back to what criminals have done for years in the past, and what dictators have done. And that is they've now directed their armies to go after civilians, individuals that can't protect themselves, mothers, babies, people in hospitals. They're doing direct attacks on individuals to try to wear down Ukraine, and literally they're doing it because they can't handle the Ukrainian armed forces.
Some of your Republican colleagues have really teed off against the Biden administration as far as refusing to send Polish jets to Ukraine. Let's take a listen.
Enough talk. People are dying. Send them the planes that they need.
So I think we need to stand up, step up, and provide the Ukrainians what they need.
At a committee hearing today, you talked about just how nuanced of an issue this is. Do you agree with your colleagues or the Biden administration's stance when dealing with this hostile nuclear power?
We most certainly want to get the Ukrainians everything that is within our power to get to them as quickly as possible. That means javelins for killing tanks. It means Stinger missiles to take out low-flying aircraft. If we can get them anti-aircraft equipment, such as the S-300s that are medium to long range, all of those as quickly as possible. And those, we believe, are all feasible and can be done fairly quickly. The challenge with the MiGs is that it may not come as quick as we want them to come, simply because of the time it would take. If we could get them there tomorrow, we would love to do it. I just simply don't want to make promises that we might not be able to honor. Long term, yes, more MiGs would be very helpful. But with that comes all of the equipment that has to support them. They have to have an air base where they can operate out of. They've got to be able to protect the air base and so forth. So, yeah, long term, absolutely. Look, I'd love to see that happen. And I think we should continue to look at that. But let's not put all of our eggs in that basket. Let's make sure that we get them the anti-aircraft that they need. Let's make sure we get them the items that they're going to be short of. They've used a heck of a lot of the javelins already to take out tanks. They're using other small munitions to take out other equipment and so forth. They've slowed down the attack. And if we could get them drones right now, that might be quicker to get more drones. Turkey had sent them drones, and they were very successful with them. But there's an attrition rate on drones because they get shot down by Russian anti-aircraft fire. So let's get them as much of that as we can, as quickly as we can. Let's not rule anything out. But let's really focus on the items that would really be able to get there in the next week to 10 days.
And we've seen reports from U.S. intelligence today that Russia may be planning a false flag operation involving bioweapons. If Russia starts using chemical agents on Ukrainians, can the world just watch and sit on our hands? Is there a red line, in other words, where U.S. troops would have to get involved?
Yet to be determined. Most certainly, we're strongest when we have our allies with us. When the United Nations would come together, but most certainly when our NATO allies would come in. Remember, we're doing this not in our own backyard, but in their backyard. We're operating out of their bases. We're operating in conjunction with them. It would take a consensus-building organization. And that doesn't mean that the United States can't lead, but recognize that when you do this, you are taking the step of going to war with a nuclear power. And you do not do that lightly, but you also do not let Vladimir Putin dictate the terms. Once we make a decision, then we have to be able to stand up and follow through with it. Let's be very careful of the threats that we make, but let's make it very clear to Mr. Putin that he will be held accountable for all of his actions. No question about that.
There's been a lot of discussion lately about how to keep oil prices down in the wake of the president banning Russian oil imports. According to the Interior Department, there are 9,600 approved federal oil and gas leases that are sitting unused, and it can take years to get those sites up and running, as you know. You have blamed the Biden administration for not doing enough, but would you say that some of the blame goes to the oil companies who aren't using the leases that they have?
No, and in fact, that's only part of the information. There may be 9,000 leases out there, but just because you have the lease does not mean that you can pump oil. You've got to get a separate lease agreement with the government. And there's only one person right now, as near as we can tell, that's actually approving those leases. I think there's a lot of information going to come out about the delays that this administration is doing in terms of taking the next step, which is providing permission to actually start the pumps, to get them approved environmentally on a case-by-case basis. And when you slow that process down, and there's over half of those leases out there that are in that process right now that they're waiting to bring online, that tells you a lot about whether or not they really have an interest in providing additional resources. Furthermore, once you do that, you've still got to be able to put in the pipelines to get that to market. And you've got to have permission to do that as well. So when anybody suggests to you that there are 9,000 leases out there, they're only telling you part of the story, and it's a misleading part of the story. We need this administration to step up, because if they really think that the way that Americans are going to do this is get run out of being able to use gasoline because of the price and go to other alternatives, well, we just simply don't have very many magic carpets out there. We've got to be able to use petroleum. We've got to have it. And this administration is going to have to back up a little bit from what their promises have been about shutting down oil and gas leases in this country. The 9,000 out there may be true, but the ones that they've allowed to actually and approved for actually getting the leases in place and ready to start pumping is an entirely different story.
Senator Mike Rounds, we so appreciate your time and you joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.